I'm Dixie from OSPI and really appreciate your time this afternoon. We have a few slides put together, but really wanted to provide an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have about recruiting and identifying schools to participate in the P2P pilot. We kick off tomorrow, but we know that there will be schools that may be stepping in for the next session or a little bit later in the process. We also have a very special guest with us, Molly from Kennewick. Is that right? Kennewick School District, who has been on a gate equity webinar before, I think, or some of our presentations talking about the work that she's been doing relative to P2P in her school. So she can speak from experience, and we thought, why not have the person who is actually doing the work here to answer any questions you might have and provide that perspective for you as we do the sense making through this pilot. So do you mind if we do a quick round robin introduction really quickly? I can go ahead and start, and then I'll toss it and we can just go around. I'll keep track and help you if you don't happen to notice who hasn't gone yet, but let's go ahead and do the toss the ball thing. So again, Dixie from OSPI, I'm gonna toss it to Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie from OSPI, and I work for Dixie in the Office of System and School Improvement and the K-12 supports.
You toss it to somebody next, Ronnie.
Or I'll give it to Chuck.
Well, AKA Charles, but really Chuck. I keep forgetting to change it on there, and I'm honored to be here as I work with Suzann, my colleague, on P2P and our experiences of playing with it for the last 10 years. I'll toss the ball to my colleague, Suzann.
I'm still Suzann. I'm with Powerless to Powerful and thrilled to see you all here. Go ahead, Molly.
I'm Molly Hammaker-Teals, and I am the building principal at Southridge High School in Kennewick. And I'm passing to Gloria.
Hey, Molly, your shirt is just making you shine, girl. I'm Gloria. I'm an OSSI partner. And I can't see anyone else, so Dixie tossed the ball for me.
I sure will, Gloria. Thank you for joining us. I know this has been a busy couple of days for all of you continuous improvement partners and ESD folks, but thank you again. I'll pass it to Carrie.
You're welcome.
I'm Carrie Sorensen, and I am a continuous improvement partner in the ESD 105 region. And I'm looking forward to this work. I'll pass it to Mary.
I knew you were going to do that. Mary McConnell, I'm also a SIP in 105, and Molly, I live in Richland and I've spent a lot of time in the Kennewick School District as a leadership coach and math coach over there. So I know Southridge well, and my son went to Richland High and he doesn't like Southridge. So just saying, they don't like Richland High either. Sorry, I forgot to toss the ball. I'll send it to Kate.
Well, hello, I am Kate Stetzner, and I'm in ESD 112 as a continuous improvement partner. Oh, and I'm tossing it to Conrad.
Hello, thanks, Kate. I'm Conrad Hurdle, continuous improvement partner for ESD 121, and I will pass it on to Lori Scott.
Hi, I'm Lori Scott. I am the Director of Systems and School Improvement for ESD 123. Passionate about Powerless to Powerful and excited to be here and to see this growing across our state. Oh, wait, Larry, have you introduced yourself yet? Okay, Larry, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. Larry Davison, ESD 105. I'm a coordinator here at ESD 105 and serve as the ESD lead for our region. And how about Ron? Catch you and have you go next, Ron.
So I'm Ron Franks, and I'm actually on the road. and I'm not seeing the entire gallery, so I'm not sure who to pass it on to, but I am a continuous improvement partner in Puget Sound 121.
Thanks, Ron. I'll go ahead and pass it for you. I'll pass it to Ann.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi,
Welcome.
everyone. I'm Ann Gallagher. I'm a continuous improvement partner for ESD 123, filling some big shoes of Kevin's. Anyway, my apologies about not having my video on. My internet has just been horrible today. Don't know what's going on, but great to be here. I'll pass it. Is there anyone else who has not gone yet?
Gail.
Gail, I pass it to you.
Hi, Gail Everly, Aussie lead at Northwest ESD 189 in Anacortes, and glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Again, really excited to just do some quick framing slides again, having Molly here to talk about the experiences there at Southridge, and then answer any questions that you have received or expect to receive in regards to schools participating in the pilot or your own participation. We are finding through this pilot a great opportunity to not only work directly with those schools, but we remind ourselves often, the P2P team here, Chuck, Suzann, and myself, and Ronnie and Lori, about this is really about the continuous improvement partners and the ESD leads, and providing you with what you need to build capacity around the P2P work. So you are our focus this year. Love to have the schools along with us as you know, as we do the work, but we really are focused on you and providing you the support that you need to really get in, test this model out, and see how it applies to your work, and how it can aid you as partners in this work called continuous improvement. So again, we have a few slides. Are there any questions before we get started, or anything you want to make sure that we know before we spend the next short of an hour together? All right. Just quickly, we are recording this and we'll save the link. We have the PowerPoint. We've built a Padlet where we're putting all of our resources. We're going to continue to send that out to you all the time. So if there is some golden nugget here that you hear today, you have the recording. You can go back and use it however you want in your own work with schools or for your continued learning. And you'll have all the resources at your fingertips as we spend the year together. So, all right. Chuck, Suzann, should I go ahead and put the PowerPoint up then? All right, we're going to do it. I think this is it. Yes. I have so many of these little like things that show up on the top of my screen. Do you know those things? Can't find it. How about this? Is this it?
You got it.
All right, this is it. Are you starting, Chuck?
No, you had slide 1 and 2, and you kind of.
I have slide 1 and 2. I kind of
covered. You already covered slide 1, and so you can move right into slide 2.
I'm going to go to slide 2. And every time I think about this work, it takes me down memory lane, and I have to think about where did we all start and how far we've come in this work. Probably not as fast as some of us that are deep in the work would like to have seen it, but honestly have moved pretty far in the 10 or so years I've been engaged in this work. It all started out for me when I, at the state office, was pulled into looking at a systemic approach to dropout prevention, intervention, and re-engagement. And I started, searching stuff on the internet, just like most of us do now. We start doing things. And I stumbled across this guy, Dr. Salina, and the work of Dr. Girtz and the Sunnyside story. And I contacted them and said, can you tell me a little bit about the work there and what went on? And I was specifically looking for, at that point, early warning systems and what that looked like so that we could try to figure out how to create that checklist for other schools that maybe were struggling with graduation rates. And Chuck burst my bubble the first conversation we had, and he said, there is no checklist and you have to do the work and go through the process to build a culture for learning. And so we did a little bit deeper dive into learning about the process and the work that happened in Sunnyside And then we expanded that work through our research and outlier school work in the Graduation Equity Initiative. And that's where we went to the data and we looked for high schools who had higher than state average graduation rates, who had low disproportionality and had sustained that type of outcome over time. And then we went out and we did action research with them. Based on what they did in Sunnyside, we asked some questions and did a thematic analysis of what these schools were doing to look for those commonalities. And it really just reinforced the kind of work and the building of a culture for learning that Sunnyside started and these schools had done in their own way and their own context. And then as an administrative shift, the K-12 support team got put in the Office of System and School Improvement because they wanted us to connect the work that we were doing to the schools and students that needed it the most. So it was a great opportunity, even though Chuck at the time in Sunnyside and Gonzaga through their research were working in a school that was identified for comprehensive supports. We had never intentionally made that connection. We had stayed at kind of like anybody who wants this great information, isn't this great? Well, 2 years ago, then we connected with the Office of System and School Improvement. I guess it's been 3 years now. And we intentionally brought P2P directly into the programming of the Office of System and School Improvement and started the pilot in 123. They were poised and interested in doing some intentional work in their school improvement and continuous improvement work there under the leadership of Terry Kessy and Lori Scott. And so we started with that and our continuous improvement partner, Kevin Foster, which many of you know. And we did that work and it just took off. And we have now kind of zeroed in on a kind of a scope and sequence, or at least a process. It isn't written down. It kind of goes with the flow and it depends on what schools need and where we're at. But we kind of have the seminars set up. We have decided this next year to build the capacity of the pilot ESDs. We are going to focus on you as ESD leads and the continuous improvement partners for this work. Again, you will be working with schools and you will have identified schools to work with. But again, our focus is the ESDs, the continuous improvement partners, and potentially one, maybe two schools that you're working with that you can actually try these things out and then come back and share your experiences and we can discuss and learn together in this learning community. So that's kind of the history to where we've come from and where we are right now and where we hope to get by the end of this year and see how we do. So I'm going to pause for a minute and say, Chuck, Suzann, did I forget anything? No?
It's hard to get it all into one, right? But and you did mention this, but you know, our work also looked at when we talk about the disproportionality, we have the equity lens that we're trying to make sure everyone's winning and we're decreasing that gap. And so that's what our research showed, was that this work is what accomplishes that. And I look forward to sharing more about it.
Thank you. Any questions from you all there? You on the line in the gallery participating. All right, let's move on. I'm gonna turn it over.
I think we've talked about this before, sure we have. And as we've heard this, we thought we might have schools, but I think this would be a good thing for SIPs to also talk to their schools about. It really is a paradigm shift. It's a tweaking and thinking in how we do our work, what we do and how we do it. And it really is about building the capacity of the leaders of the school. It's not a sequential checklist, but building capacity to have clarity of where am I leading and supporting the people that I work. And it's grounded in this notion of service to others, a very humanistic approach. And it's really about how do I become, as Dixie said so well, developing a culture for learning. And the focus is not just on student learning, but adult learning. How to create such a culture and what are the behaviors I do and how do I use data and systems and collaboration to make that happen. The hard work and the important role that SIPs play, it's making sense of the principles of P2P within the context of your school. Everybody says, just tell us how. No, these are the grounded principles that do the work, but how do you apply it within your context? That requires, instead of a do mentality, making sense before I do, and making sense in a very holistic way. It's not just working on one aspect, like a SMART goal typically enters us into and drives our thinking maybe into one avenue of raising graduation rates. But it's more than just looking at one aspect of school improvement. It's a holistic, integrated approach that relies on your contextual evidence and your perceptual evidence as much as hard achievement evidence. And because it's grounded in service to others and making sense of their work within a context, we'd like to think that the frameworks on what that are suggested in P2P is transformative. It's a way we do business. It's a cultural shift of how we do business. And so often we've been doubling down through our school improvement plans of doing it very similar or more intentional versus shifting how we do what we do. So it's not prescriptive, it's not program driven. It's not about, oh, let's find a program to fix this. It's making sense of what we do and how we do it, and maybe how a process or program fits into supporting that. It's not about fixing others. We found out a long time ago that you can replace your 7, 8, 9 batters on your team, but you're going to have new 7, 8, 9 batters take your place. Often we say, well, I got to get the right players on the right seats of the bus. Well, again, if this is leadership capacity, it's really who's driving the bus and how do they work with those that are in the seats. And so it's not about fixing others. It's not driven by external accountability factors. We have found the more we focus on the right work, the byproduct of a culture for learning is creating a culture where people are engaged, find a sense of self-worth, a sense of belonging, and a sense of hopefulness. So as we look at what's important, scores do go up, graduation rates do go up, but it's not by intentionally looking at that, it's by intentionally looking at our culture and doing the right work that aligns to our mission. Therefore, it's not a checklist or linear, and at times it really hurts the brain because you have to hold more than one concept in your head to create such a culture. So therefore, it's not transactional. If I do A, B will keep. It's messy, nonlinear, but we don't need, the exciting thing we find is we don't even need to necessarily do it right. It needs to be transparent of what we're attempting to do, and positive outcomes will come. And I think Molly will reinforce some of those big ideas. So Suzann, I probably talked way too fast, said way too much. What did I miss? Anything you want to reinforce, and then any questions?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll ask us questions at the end.
Okay. So I guess the next slide.
So if that's what we're about, this is about how we have functioned, and Molly can speak to both of those as well, because I know folks wonder about the one more thing aspect, right? And I hope she'll address that as well. So one thing I'm particularly appreciative of with the folks who have engaged with us over the years is that they understand that learning, and especially professional learning, adult learning, is not really facilitated or efficacious to do in that kind of one drop in, one setting, I'm gone, hope you learned, and hope you're going to do something with it. That doesn't generally do much. And so we have been able to partner with people to do seminars over time, sometimes over years. And we've done those in different formats. Obviously, we've switched to Zoom as the environment changed. And that's what we're going to continue anchoring our work in, are those content learning seminars where we're talking about the beliefs and behaviors that help develop a culture for learning, and providing some suggestions for field-based exercises. And yes, I see multiple typos. I think I went through and edited a PowerPoint that must be further down on your email. But people get it. That's like this exercise that you see on Facebook where they jumble the letters together and they're like, if you can read this, you're brilliant, right? That's what we're doing.
What does it mean if you can read it and not see the typos?
Yeah. So we leave folks with some suggestions of here's where you would take the content from today into the field to practice with it. And of course, you as SIPs will be there with them in that first session. We're hoping you even get a little ahead of them so that you're leading this work. And so you're able to walk with the building leaders in that change process, but grounding it in the context of their school. And so we go from the content seminars to you walking with them to these periodic, we call them check and connects, where we come back to support and have dialogue with you to ensure that not only are you doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, but are we lined up with what's happening in the context of schools? And that's why, you know, we do have a scope and sequence, but we modify it every single time based on the reality of what's happening in schools today. So it's a two-way communication, and it helps us both stay accountable to each other. So it's a lovely longitudinal way of learning, because we know we have to see things many times, many ways, grapple with them, apply them to our context, fail, try again. And this allows for that instead of that kind of one-shot learning. It gives you the press, here's this content, but the support, right? We're here with you. And of course, we're here with you while you're there with schools. So it's a lovely, I think it's a great model that I'm excited to pilot this way. And we have done with schools over the years. And so Molly can describe it through her experience and her lens, and that might help some of this take meaning for you.
Thanks, Suzann. So I'm going to kind of build off of the quote here that it isn't one more thing. It really is just how you're doing the things that you do and looking at them differently. Sounds on some level really simple, and on another level it is completely complex and scary. And so I'm going to actually talk about that dichotomy. So this isn't a program. It's exactly as Chuck and Suzann have said. It isn't that thing that you just do, and so it is the way of being and how you operate. So there aren't lots of tweaks. There aren't massive things that need to be changed. You're just adjusting. One of the things that I keep coming back to is I would have these check and connects, and I would talk with Chuck and Suzann and Kevin, and things would happen, and they would ask me about things, and I'd be like, "Oh, right, that's so easy. Why am I not doing it?" And I did this like 5-6 times because as simple as it is, doing a one-on-one, you go out and you have a conversation and you bring that information back. That's not hard. And yet you are building different things. You have to make a habit out of it. I am going to equate this to smoking because it's really easy to say, if you want to quit smoking, which you should do, it's not healthy, just don't smoke the cigarette. It's so easy to say. And although I'm not an addict, I know addicts. It's hard. It's incredibly hard. It's challenging. And you take 2 steps forward and steps back and all those things. And I look at this the same way. So I want to be completely transparent. As much as this is on some level simple, it is really complex and hard. And it is the absolute right work. And getting to where you want to go, I am a full believer. And we just had a meeting today, and I sat there and went, how did I miss this? I had all these new understandings. Nothing magical happened. Asked me the same questions again, and I had a completely new understanding. And that is, I think, the other piece that Suzann was talking about. It's not just a one conversation and done, but it is a continual process. And that then again just absolutely describes what this is. There isn't a magical program, there isn't a magical thing out there, and each of us have our different context. And even in my own context, what works today doesn't mean that in 3 years from now it's going to work. My students aren't going to be the same. Our life experiences are society isn't going to be the same. So why would I expect that what we're doing and how we're operating should also be the same? It really resonates with when we talk about inclusion, that we really should be adjusting and making it appropriate for our students. We don't look and say, oh, here's Southridge and you need to fit into what Southridge is. Instead, I should be looking at and saying, who are you and how can Southridge meet you where you're at? And again, it's going to be continually changing. And that is the beauty of the process, that it is continually changing and modifying and making it appropriate for who's there. And it's hard and it's simple. Chuck and Suzanne, what am I missing on that, or what questions can I answer?
I'm going to defer to the group to fill in the blanks, and I'll throw in my questions and see what the group, what sense making, what did they hear, or questions they might have for you, Mom.
Sorry, before you ask a question, I do have one more that I want to throw out there. And that is about perfection. Probably you're going to have a lot of type A's who are building leaders, and perfection is a thing, and it's not a great thing. And one of my challenges, and that doesn't mean that's everyone's challenge, is that I have to be right. I have to get it right. So you're going to hear a lot about think it and ink it. You just do it. And I have this thing about, well, I don't want to do it wrong. And so I really need to know what I'm doing before I put it out there, because what if I get it wrong? And really being okay with 75% is pretty amazing. And that's great. And you just do it. And it isn't going to be right every time or at any time. And so having strength to take the risks to do that and be okay with that. That's my challenge, I guess, is I would say.
Could you add to that a little bit? You talked about accountability.
Oh, thank you.
And that notion of accountability, and that this whole process declares what you're willing to be held accountable for as a leader.
Yep. So 45-day plan, it's super easy. You put down your 45-day plan and you work on it all the time. And I would have I would write my 45-day plan, and I would then forget about it and not do anything with it. And that was a challenge. And this is one of those things that came back and back. My not writing it, I think, had to do a lot with, I didn't want to get it wrong. And I was afraid if I wrote something, it would be wrong. And the other one was, then I didn't know what to do. So I needed to set myself an accountability partner. I have calendar reminders in there that say, every Wednesday, you check your 45-day plan, because that's what I need to do for myself. And I have an additional meeting for an hour with someone else so that I can talk about my 45-day plan. So those are the supports I put in place for myself, because when you go to the gym, sometimes it's hard to work out. It's really great to go with a friend who's going to make sure that you're going to attend. Again, we all have our things, so why we don't do them, but whatever. I need an accountability partner. And that has really helped me stay true to it, even though it's still really hard.
Thanks, Mike. Questions?
I have a question. What advice would you give the SIPs here who will be coaching the principals?
Helping them with their accountability. It's gonna be hard, and understanding and maybe helping explain that, that this is simple and hard at the same time, and I'm here for you. And how can I help you? What do you want to be held accountable to for our next time? What supports do you need to be successful? Like, those are all the questions that we should be asking. But I think of principals as well, and school teams. And maybe that is too, like having them reflect on what do you think is going to be hard about this? I can tell you, I live in the world of I want to be a perfectionist and it's bad. Maybe they have that self-awareness. And if they don't, maybe that's a good thing to look into as well. It is transformational, and having that metacognition about it, I think, will help make the process better for them to transition to this is your leadership work versus this is your management work.
This is Anne, and I love what you just said. This is your leadership work, not your management work. That's just a great mindset.
Yeah.
I just am wondering if you could share, like, what components of P2P have, you said it's been transformational. Do you have some specific aspects of, how it's really either changed your leadership or has changed, had a real incredible impact on the school, whether it's your systems or outcomes, so how have those pieces really helped in that transformation?
So at the same time, I'm going to answer your question. I wouldn't say like we're there. So I'm going to take my successes as some baby steps.
We're all growing.
Yes. So I would really look at that from the system standpoint, like how we're being more intentional about serving our kids, that it's not by accident that we are supporting, but intentional. There's a system that caught them in there, and then we got the support. So I really feel strongly about that, and I'm really excited about how we're doing that. That it's changing how we're doing our work. That's exciting to me. It's not that I randomly ran into this kid and then decided to meet with them, but I called the student in and said, yeah, so we've got some stuff that we're going to work on, and here's how I'm going to help you and walk with you on this one. Looking at our data as well, and having that more holistic perception, where we're looking at that it's not just academics, but we are looking at academic and behavior and attendance, and that social emotional component as well. I think it's great because sometimes we get bogged down into details. Sometimes it's how many credits are they getting? Are they graduating? When sometimes there's more to it than that. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about with your leadership team, Molly, your fellow principals? How's it, your assistant principals?
So what's great about that, and I'm going to hit the leadership comment again, it has really challenged me to then help develop the leadership of those that I work with, and having, again, not just being managers. And I am a super good manager. And I think when we go to school that we learn a lot of how to manage. And managing is easy on some level, right? It is a checkbox, it's a to-do. The leadership is the messy and the hard part. So it has challenged me to help develop and assist my leadership team to be leaders. And walking through it and muddling through it, not that I'm the expert, but it is really good work. And it's the right work. It's hard, but it's hard. And I'm going to go one more step too. And I think to also say then that the interconnectedness of our work and how we work together is the other component that I want to talk about. So it's not just that's over there in that department. It's not just attendance and we'll figure out what attendance is doing, but it's how are we coming together around attendance and how are we supporting each other in our work, and how does the work with our attendance affect the work with our behavior and the work with our academics. So how we can see ourselves as individuals and yet as the whole.
Molly, I have a quick question. Have you seen impact on morale or maybe engagement from staff, motivation, anything like that?
Yeah. So, and I'm even going to say it from myself, because I think that's probably the easiest one. And I feel like I was struggling. Being a principal is hard. You're alone in that work that you're doing. You kind of have other people you can rely on and talk to, but it's lonely. And I have been, and now I'm going to talk about like a vision or having purpose. I have really felt that I have purpose now in what I'm doing, and that has given me a lot of energy. So I can specifically say for that. So that is then what's going out with my staff, and when I'm talking to our other admin of, yeah, this feels like the right work. I understand where we're going. I understand why we're doing this. And I understand how we're going to get there, not because of this magic pill, but because we're working together and I can see how it's going to work. So that for me has been amazing. It has made the hard and difficult, lonely job nice and exciting and rejuvenating.
Well, if you keep talking, they're gonna think we paid you.
I know. Okay, so no, I have to tell you this story too. This is such a good story. Dixie, I think you were telling about how you met Chuck. I randomly went to an ESD training. It was special education. I don't even remember exactly why. I thought that's why I was there. I met Chuck and he's like, here's the deal, Mal. I got a program for you. You should really do this. I'll hook you up. Don't you worry about it. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. I love it. Let's do it. And that's how I'm here.
I did not use the word program.
Oh, sorry. You did not use the word program. I said it. That was my bad. Okay, so.
Other questions, please.
Hi, Molly. Larry here from 105 Yakima. In the seminars that we went through with Chuck and Suzann and Dixie, there was a lot that was talked about with transparency. You know, transparency in the 45-day plan, transparency in just, being able to walk the halls and be able to say, hey, do we have it right? Well, that's a transparent type of a piece of we want feedback. So how did that work at Southridge and how did you see that level of transparency, with Dixie's question about morale? Did that help change things because things were more transparent?
So again, remember when I said like, we're not there yet? Okay, so on those places, yes. It is really helpful. And that transparency of here's what we're doing. And it's COVID, so a lot of it has been staff meetings and here's where we're going and here's why we're going there. And that has helped. We talk about that vision and that purpose. At the same time, that's building that vision and that purpose for everyone else. So everyone else is understanding, oh, yes, we're all going in the same direction. So it's a lot of that. And it's the understanding the problems before they become problems, the conversations. Some of my one-on-ones are, hey, here's what I'm planning on going over in our staff meeting. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else I need to talk about? I had the best staff meeting after that. It was brilliant. And again, do you look at that as transparency? Do you look at that as the understanding? They got what they needed. I understood what it was that was needed and I responded. Larry, did I answer your question? I kind of felt like I did, and then I kind of felt like I missed it. Okay.
Hey, Larry, I want to ask you a question. You've been out talking to schools in 105 region. What are you hearing from them when you start talking about this work?
You know what? It has been easy. This is an easy sell, partly because of Chuck and Suzann's work. It's in our region. Sunnyside is, one of our 105 districts. So many people, Chuck and Suzann and Dixie, so many people have said, I'm aware of his work. I heard of his work. We reached out to districts that are neighbors to Sunnyside that were, trying things on way back when Chuck was there at the high school. So it has been interesting and really uplifting to not have to sell it at all. So I think the schools, because we have a set of schools that have all said we're in and ready to go. So we're excited about that. And there was one person that asked a little bit about, okay, I want to make sure that it's not a layer. I don't need another lead blanket on top of what And we said, you know what, you're going to find that this dovetails so nicely. It's going to give you a different perspective on the work that you're doing. But, you know, especially Molly, with some of the things you're sharing about what you're doing, you're in the midst of it. But it's about building relationships and about building trust. And I just think the biggest part has the success and the ease at which we've had of districts, you know, asking to be a part. Because I think we tried to keep it kind of quiet. We, you know, Carrie and Mary, our two partners, Mike Klossner, our director for teaching and learning, all working together to try to, you know, in a way, what schools do we think are ready to benefit from this? And Carrie and Mary have that great position as coaches out and partners out in the buildings. And so I'm sure we're going to get a lot of folks that go, wait a minute, how come I didn't get, you know, how come I wasn't going to be a part? So I anticipate that, and what a great problem to have. Hey, we're not going to forget you. We're going to, you know, work as a region eventually with some of this. But thanks for the opportunity. Sorry, I talked too much. It's been great, and it was easy, and we're excited.
Can I jump in here maybe for a minute? Larry, first, I want to be very clear and transparent in our group one-on-ones here of what our vision is. And I want to hear if you understand. I want real clarity of what our vision is. And I'm not saying it's the right vision. I'm just starting, do we have it right? Our vision is clear to build capacity of coaches to work with schools around these concepts. Our vision is to use your strengths that you all possess from your work history and your successful work history, but have a common framework and a common language in the field that we're working statewide. So it's not to prescribe for you, but have you make sense of that as you see it within the context. Our vision is that you take the material and are the teacher of P2P, if you will, through your lens and your context, or the facilitator is a better word, to come alongside. And so our customer, for lack of a better word, is not the school, it's you. You as the SIP. And as we come alongside you as a SIP, you're going to help us grow, because I learned how we do it in Kennewick and its context to how we do it in another school that we're working with is different, but the principles that drive the work are grounded. We'd like to think we've operationalized Hattie's work on how to do Hattie's thinking. We'd like to think that. So our vision is, and it may be a blessing in disguise, is some of the schools can't even make the first seminar. Hopefully that all coaches can make that seminar and say, how do I take this video, this PowerPoint, and how do I sit down with my schools and do the same thing with them without Chuck and Suzann even there, right? And how does this make sense to me and my strengths and knowing my school I serve? You might not even use the PowerPoint. You just might use the resources and the principles as you understand it. So our intent, you know, I'm getting to be an old man and Suzann could take this and fly with it, but our intent is to really empower you and then give us feedback how it influences your work in the field. The principles, there's nothing new around relational trust. There's nothing new about believing, expecting, and supporting. There's nothing new about data systems, but we have a different twist on it. We have a different twist. That means breaking 20 years of habits of school improvement plans and SMART goals that in our head are good, but don't make a difference. So it's different. That's why Molly says it's simple, but hard. So I'll shut up, but I want to share our vision, and that's what we're attempting to do. And I think we didn't understand what we were trying to do just till the other day. And so as you, your direct feedback, and doesn't make sense, but it gives you a vehicle to come alongside and be an accountability partner with your teammate with a common experience called the P2P frameworks and the language it contains. Suzann, I probably said it 3 different ways awkwardly. Would you want to build anything onto that, or Dixie?
I was just going to add that in addition to building capacity at the continuous improvement partner level, this is really about ESD leadership too,
Yeah,
right? And
you.
knowing that you are, like Larry, you said, this is about continuous improvement across your region. So how are you contextualizing this framework and making sense of it at that ESD level to support all of your improvement work?
And that's the
And we
challenge.
knew that we can't sustain it. We couldn't be successful. We certainly can't sustain it without ESD. That's why we said continuous improvement partners. You had to kind of be a team with your ESD. ESD, you had to have your SIPs with you. I mean, we really see you as both necessary, I think, as we go through the pilot.
Thanks, Dixie, because it really is, how do we make sense with the ESDs and what their role in this whole process, which is significant. Lori has proven that, and Terry have proven that in 123. Any thoughts, feedback, evaluation, or okay? That's all.
Well, Chuck, just one quick comment to speak to that so appreciative of Mike Klossner, who is our Director of Teaching and Learning, who has committed. He's busy. I mean, I look at my calendar and his, and there's no comparison. He's crazy busy, but he says, I am committed to this. I want to be a part of this. And so I think that really adds to then the level of commitment that, and support as we support Carrie and Mary in our region, and then support, and contribute to a statewide community. Really appreciate Mike saying this is too important to just, Larry, give me kind of a heads up from time to time, because Mike truly has that capacity to reach out in his work to every school in our region and work then with, directors in other regions. So I appreciate what both of you have said, Chuck, all three, Chuck, Suzann, and Dixie, about that, about how this can help to transcend the work that we do within a region for our schools.
I'm gonna step out there. Chuck, you good with this?
I'm good with anything.
You never know what's gonna happen with me.
It might hurt. I might get defensive, but I probably need to hear it.
I know. So I'm just imagining if I were in your shoes, how I would be doing this. And so here's my advice, is just like you are assisting schools in this work, I think you do this work. How are you doing check-in connects with the people that you work with in the schools and in your smaller world? How are you having that academic press with the people that you work with and supporting them? Like, that's how you're going to be great leaders and supporters of the school, is when you are integrating it into what you do.
Versus going with the flow.
Yep.
Well said.
No, I love it. Every concept, right? You can apply to your own leadership. How are you using 45-day action planning processes? How are you building connection to the work, envisioning a future? Yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Absolutely. Because this isn't just a school thing or a classroom thing. It is an everything thing.
Molly, what you shared out there, I was thinking earlier about this, because one of the aspects or one of the facets of the work we do with continuous improvement are the RINs, the Regional Improvement Networks. And we've done just so proud of the work that collectively has been done within our region, and the leadership team that we have with folks from OSPI, with Carrie and Mary and others. But what you just said, that this work then, this mindset should transcend into that work. The check and connect of, as we invite our coordinators from the ESD, we're still breaking down silos. But as we then connect with them to work on, do we have this right? The work that we just did, we just walked out of a RIN, or we're getting ready for one of our meetings. And here's our plan, here's our roadmap. And how do we try to figure that out and make it relate to the work they do out in the field for our identified schools and other schools? Do we have it right? So I appreciate that. And I'm glad that Carrie and Mary are on this, because then they get to hold me accountable to say, how do we see that? Or as we work together to then make this work become larger than just, oh yeah, we've got two people out working with a few schools on this effort, that it's really a shift in mindset. So thanks, appreciate that.
Well, that is the whole essence of what we're talking about, is how do we construct meaning ourselves as we construct with others. And as Suzann indicated in our action research, there is nothing new, but how it's applied and delivered means learning new habits to change old beliefs about leadership. And so that's well said, Larry.
I also want to keep in mind, and we talk about Sunnyside a lot and your work there, your initial work, but you've been working in schools across the state at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level. So just keep in mind if you're doing your work at those various levels, there's examples and problem solving that the team can help with during the check and connects, I think. Sometimes
Well-
I hear that, like, have you ever done it outside Sunnyside? It's like, absolutely, right?
Well, right now we have probably 16 schools outside of Sunnyside. The other piece I want to mention is I always got to, I was an elementary principal for 10 years before 4 years middle and 14 years high school. And it's, how can I say this? It's really fun in some districts now. I'm getting high school principals working with elementary principals differently because they're talking the same language. Elementaries are easier to engage in the work because they're all enthusiastic beginners, and high schools tend to be reluctant contributors initially because they're too busy doing the real work. And so that wasn't a slam toward you, Molly. I just, what I am saying is, in middle schools are the middle children of the stepchild that say, everybody's left me out. And so bringing them together with a common language and a common systems approach. I'm working with one district that we're doing check and connects and 45-day plans across the district. It's very exciting to see how they see themselves different in supporting each other in the system. So absolutely, Dixie. We start with that, and maybe we talk too much about that, but it's much bigger than that anymore. And they too have to self-correct, so it's all good. I'd like to hear just briefly from maybe SIPs that haven't spoken or ESD people. How does this make sense to you in doing the work, or what's one thing you're looking forward to in doing the work or reluctant? And then that way we make sure we heard maybe more voices, and then we can get off the Brady Bunch.
Well, I guess I can speak up because I'm usually very shy. Anyway, I'm really excited, you guys, because you know who I'm bringing on with us is someone that knows you, Chuck, and it's Bomaro Ruiz.
Oh.
He has just been chosen to be the SOUP principal at Roosevelt, and I've been working at Roosevelt for 5 years and gone through 3 or 4 SOUP principals, and so it's just a wonderful opportunity because I know the school well, I know the background well, and I know him, and he's just going to be fabulous. And Kathy and I are really looking forward to having that connection.
Cool. Come on, what stretch and catch? One more before we sign off. One more that happens, just one more to get us off the hook.
I'll give you one. I'm really looking forward to, I was in a meeting, we were doing working on some improvement science stuff, and all of a sudden I went, oh, wow, you can take the SIP and improvement science and P2P, and now you've got a plan that actually works to get people doing the work that will improve schools, and that's what we're about. So it just all of a sudden one day just
You froze.
hit me. I know how to connect all these things now.
That's awesome. Making connections. That's what our framework is all about. That's awesome.
Hey, Chuck, can I sneak in with one quick comment? Kate, I worked with Bolmaro at Toppenish for 8 years. I've known him for a long time, and he and I have been trading emails back and forth, and no idea that you've been working with him or that, this is a school you'll be working with. I just mailed off Powerless, Powerful book to him. He's in the new role, and I thought, you know what, even if he just reads the book, and has no other connection, here are some great strategies, Bully, for you, because he's a close friend of mine. So this is exciting. I can't wait to hear some success stories, but so know that he's already got the book. It's on the way to his office. You're on mute, Kate.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful opportunity because having someone new and he's been asking me all the questions since he just was hired 2 weeks ago, but every day I've talked to him and I'm thinking, I finally called him 2 days ago and I go, wait a minute. You need to be in P2P with us, because I said, you need to have a whole lot of expertise, not just me telling you something and mentoring you. And he goes, oh, that's so exciting. So we're really looking forward to that, because it'll bring a really new perspective in my mind to a very small school that has a lot of incredibly different needs than some other schools. So thank you, Larry. I know we're going to love it.
Well, in the end, as Dixie brings it home then, because we had those comments, obviously you can email Suzann and I anytime. Since a second, we're going in a kind of a, I won't say new direction, but we're growing in our understanding. And of course, our time between places is sometimes long, and old habits come back really quickly in short periods of time. And so how you walk with your schools is critical, but more importantly, you're the link to the context to make P2P come alive. So you're our link to help self-correct, to make sure we're moving at the right pace, covering it at a level they understand and appreciate. And our first session, which you'll take back if your school can't make it, is really going to focus on building relational trust between you and your schools in a way that understanding using the principle of P2P. So we look forward to that work, and you self-correcting us on a regular basis, because you're our lifeline to make sure we get it right in the process. You are the key. So I don't want to put too much wax on. It doesn't, it's not our fault then at the end.
No, that's a great lead in, Chuck. And just with a few more minutes, I wanted to do a little bit of just tactical clarification, make sure that we all understand what's on your calendars, because there's been a lot of appointments put on, right? So starting tomorrow from 9 to noon, they're 8:30 to noon. Anyway, on your calendar tomorrow, it says Seminar 1. There's 6 of those on your calendar throughout the year. Those are for ESD leads, continuous improvement partners, and your school leadership teams to attend. As we mentioned, some schools haven't, it's PD days, something's going on, they're not going to make it. We will record the session tomorrow so that you can go through that work with them. We will adjust after tomorrow for Seminar 2. In between those seminars that are spaced out basically every other month, there's a check and connect. It's called the P2P check-in. That's for the ESD leads, continuous improvement partners, Chuck and Suzann. So that's not the schools. That's just us saying, what are you finding? How's it going? Kind of like what we did today, actually. What's resonating? What are the barriers you're facing? And we're going to create this learning community, kind of figure out what we want to do for the next seminar, adjust, bring the schools in, have those conversations. So we're going to kind of accordion in and out all year long. So that's what's on your calendar. Is there any questions at all about the difference between the seminars and who comes to those and who comes to the P2P check-ins? Okay, I forgot one group of people that have been invited throughout this whole process, and that's your Aussie Liaisons. So they will be, hopefully, if they have that bandwidth, will be with you, and they will be a constant too as we look at this process through Aussie and how we incorporate this work into the foundations of continuous improvement. Liza couldn't be here today, but she'll be here along with the CI team. And then I also want to say that Conrad Earl and Ron Franklin, who are in 121, who don't have the ESD leadership, they're helping us look at this work and the onboarding and the support of continuous improvement partners through the infrastructure of Aussie. So they're kind of being our thought partners in that work. So they'll be along for the ride throughout whenever they can make it. So if there's no other questions for me, that's all I have to say.
I just really want to thank Molly for taking time to share with us her experience.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that a lot, Molly. And
Anytime.
Yep. And just remember, we're recording everything, all the the PowerPoints, the materials, they'll be put on that Padlet, and we're going to send that link out, and you're going to probably see it more than you want to see it, but we're trying to just centralize any kind of materials. There is no shame when things things come up and you can't make it. I do hope that now we can get into a rhythm and a routine, and we've got this on your calendars, that we know the more participation we have, the more regular participation we have in the seminars and the check and connects. I think the more we'll see the outcomes that we were hoping for, and the more we'll really see how this can be infused and support the work of continuous improvement and the schools that we work with. So really looking forward to working with you this year. And if you, in addition to Chuck and Suzann, if you ever have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself. And Ronnie Larson is supporting me in this work as well.
Dixie, can I ask you one quick question? Will resources for P2P be housed in SharePoint?
Is that where you would like them? I had created a Padlet so that
I can speak for myself. That would be great.
Yeah, and the deal is that the schools can't get to the SharePoint, so we would be storing them in places. We can do that though. I'll talk to Akiva about getting a SharePoint site where we can put some of the big resources, and then for the schools to get access, the Padlet I think is going to be what we're going to be using. So thanks. I will ask.
And I can share the Padlet link with you. I don't know if you've seen that or not yet, but I'll get it to you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and if anybody needs P2P books, I got a few bookshelves, and we're cleaning the house at OSPI. So if you need any books at all for the schools, just like Larry sent one off to Kate's school, just send me an email. How many copies you want? We got book 1, we got book 2. Happy to share those. Yes, Larry, I can stay. Okay, folks, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a busy couple of days. Really appreciate you attending. This is recorded. We'll get the link put in the Padlet and look for a SharePoint site where we can store the materials there as well. Sound good? Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks, Dixie. And just a quick question, since we have 4 schools, I was trying not to get ahead of you, and I thought, okay, if I can just communicate behind the scenes with schools and we could identify a date that works for them, would you think that, and Carrie and Mary should have voice in this as well, but I thought I'd just pick your brain. Is there some power in us saying, hey, we're going to do this as a cohort of 4 schools? So just like tomorrow, you're going to have many schools there, but we would pull all 4 as opposed to having Carrie and Mary work individually with those. Yeah,
I think it's a great idea. I don't know that Chuck and Suzann have time to do it. We will have the recording, but maybe they could stop in. Maybe they could, come in and do a piece of it. I did send your email on to Chuck, and Chuck said, what would be really cool is if the ESDs and SIPs could take a look at what we do tomorrow and then go off and do it. And that would be a great test to see how we're doing. If that doesn't feel right, we can talk about it more.
Well, and then I'm fine with that. I just, so I think September 24th is the date. I'm going to confirm with Joe West at Arts Fox. He was last to come on board, but so I think the 24th is going to work, and I think we're going to be fine. I wouldn't want to try to impose on anyone else. If you or Chuck or Suzann's available, great. But we should be able to take what you do tomorrow and replicate.
Yeah, let's take it what it looks like, and maybe we pull in one of your schools that have done it or what they know, or like we pulled in Molly today. Let's make it your own, and on the region, and maybe pull out those things that we're most comfortable with, because this is going to be an ongoing conversation. If there's stuff where it's like, I don't know if I feel comfortable enough, we can kind of set that aside and cover it at a future seminar, and let's just do what we feel. I'm talking for you, what we feel good about, and how we want to kick it off.
Okay, I like that. I like it a lot. Now I know, like. Kathy Page was at Toppenish last year, and I know that she says, hey, I did some work under Chuck and Suzann, and then they did some work out at Toppenish. So who was it, you or was it like Lori that kind of oversaw some of that work to give us a good idea of, is it somebody from Toppenish Middle School that might be able to come in, or is there another suggestion for someone within the region outside of, like Sunnyside or, you know,
Right.
from our region. It could be like
You know,
Molly
you
or
could
someone
ask
else.
Chuck where his followers are, because some people have left Sunnyside and gone someplace else. I don't know who Catherine was doing her PhD and her dissertation in Toppenish. So Chuck, I think, or Suzann were kind of her faculty advisor on that. They would probably know what school she worked with.
Okay. I just would want to have like insider information, you know, to have the right person. But I'll confer with Chuck and Suzann by email. And
yeah, maybe ask them who, because if they don't remember, they should though. They should remember who she was working with there for a dissertation.
yeah, and it might be powerful for someone to come within the region. It could be powerful that it doesn't matter. It's just here's what works. So
is it? Have you mainly got elementary schools or high schools or?
1 middle school, 3 elementary.
Yeah, so I know he's worked with elementaries in Spokane. You know, that's an option. I think down there in Kennewick and the Tri-Cities region, they've got elementary schools. So if that's something that plays into, are you coming tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yep.
Okay, and I know that Carrie can't. I didn't hear if Mary could or not, but maybe we regroup after tomorrow and just see.
Sure. I think last I heard Mary was going to be there. So I think we're good in that regard. So and Mike's going to be there. So we've got a nucleus. So yeah, we'll get it figured out.
You know what? You're not alone, Larry, though. I know that I don't think 189, as far as I know, Gail even has her schools arranged yet. I don't know if Kate's going to bring her school because it sounds like they just got, so long story short, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of schools tomorrow. So what I'm saying is if you could do some kind of pseudo session to catch folks up a little bit, I bet seminar 2 ends up being 1B and 2A, if that makes sense. You know, we're going to have to catch schools up the second seminar anyway. So yeah, don't stress about that. We'll work it out.
It always works out. Sometimes not like we thought, but always works out. So
thank you for coming. Thank you.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. All right. And Ronnie, thank you. Thanks for all the behind the scenes work, Ronnie.
Yeah. Thanks for recording, Ronnie. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. Ronnie, do I stop?